The story starts with a conversation between two families who are talking about getting their children married to each other. The talk about the relationship was taking place at the girl's house. The girl's name is Veda and the boy's name is Arjun. Both are already there. They liked each other because their likes and dreams were almost the same. In a way, it was going to be a love marriage. Then in the middle of the conversation, a grandmother chimes in. Veda's grandmother has a different way of thinking. Everyone is happily talking to each other when suddenly Veda's grandmother asked Veda and Arjun in front of everyone whether both of them had had sex with each other. Hearing this from grandmother, there is an awkward silence among everyone. She says that both of them should always stay together, they should know each other well. After listening to their grandmother, Arjun's mother sternly inquires whether the grandmother is trying to doubt her son. The grandmother bluntly agrees and instead suggests that she should also doubt Veda. She also says that instead of the adults doubting, they should be the ones to doubt one another. Furthermore, she adds, both of them should be comfortable with each other in the bedroom. Only then the married life will work well. Having said this, Grandma gets up and leaves, but the awkward silence remains. Before going to bed, Veda goes to her grandmother and says today she made a very good joke. Grandma says that she was not joking and that in fact she was very serious. Then she asks Veda how Arjun is in sex. Hearing grandmother's question, Veda herself gets shocked. She hesitates and says that she doesn't know. Then she asks grandmother why she is so interested in sex. The wedding is not just about sex. Upon hearing this, the grandmother says that sex is very important in marriage and that without good sex the marriage eventually breaks and ends up in shambles. Veda's parents become scared that Arjun's parents would eventually call off the marriage due to what her grandmother said, but nothing as such happened. On the other hand, Veda and Arjun spend a lot of time together and have fun. One night, both of them party for a long time and spend the night outside in a hotel room and have sex. The next morning, Veda comes to the house secretly. As soon as Veda comes, her grandmother calls for her. She had understood that last night she and Arjun were together and something had happened between them. She asks Veda how was the sex with Arjun. While saying that it was good, grandmother then asks whether Veda was able to become satisfied or not. She awkwardly confirms that she did not, stating that Arjun probably got performance anxiety. Grandma, understanding her feelings, tells Veda that Arjun seems like a sensitive person. She thinks he will not be able to sleep properly. If he comes to know that he is not giving pleasure to his partner, then he will find faults within himself. These words of the grandmother make Veda a little worried. She had understood that for her upcoming married life to go well, she would have to increase Arjun's confidence and bring him out of his performance anxiety. From that day onwards, Veda tries to increase Arjun's confidence in sex. And gradually the sex life of both of them kept getting better, and on the other hand, preparations were also being made for their marriage. One day, Veda brings Arjun to her house to meet her grandmother. Grandmother is busy worshipping. Veda repeatedly tries to talk, but grandmother ignores her and remains busy in worship. She doesn't pay attention despite Veda trying to speak to her again and again. Frustrated, Veda tells grandmother that she is wasting their time. She reminds her grandmother that they left their luxury hotel just to talk to her. Upon hearing this, the grandmother becomes happy and says to the both of them that this is all she wanted to hear. She tells them that she is sure their marriage would now be a success because they are so engrossed in each other that everything else seems irrelevant. It is this impatience of being in each other's company that will keep them together after marriage. She assures them that they will always love each other and that their feelings for each other will never diminish. She adds that after marriage, many things will pull them away from each other, but if their sex life is good and healthy, it will never let them both get separated, and even if they do get separated, these memories will bring them back to each other. After some time, Arjun and Veda get married and both happily start their new life. The meaning of this story is that a good and healthy sex life is very important for love and marriages to be successful. The thing that keeps two life partners close to each other for a long time. The next story starts at 3 in the afternoon in Mumbai. Ashita started having severe headaches, so she leaves her office. When she reaches her flat and goes inside, she stands there staring at the clock. Seeing that Seema, her maid, was having sex with someone on her bed in Ashita's flat, she gets nervous and rushes outside. She immediately calls her friend and tells her about what she just saw. Samin, Ashita's friend, tells Ashita to fire Seema instantly. As soon as she cuts the call, Seema and the man leave Ashita's flat. Turns out that man was Seema's husband. They live in a small rundown house where their whole family stays, and because of this, Seema and her husband are unable to get any time to indulge in any sort of intimacy. This is why they keep their physical life outside of their house, and which is also why Ashita's house was the perfect place for them to get intimate. After Seema left the place, Ashita entered her house and stared at the bedsheet in disgust. In a fit, she grabs the bedsheet and throws it away. But instead of firing Seema, in fear of confrontation, she begins imagining what she saw and begins to pleasure herself. The next day, when Seema comes to work, Ashita cannot think of anything other than what she witnessed yesterday. Ashita wanted to confront Seema but was reluctant. After some time had passed, Ashita mustered up the courage and went to talk to Seema. Although when she does start talking, she panics and says something else and leaves for her office. That day, Ashita deliberately leaves for home at the same time as yesterday so that she can catch Seema red-handed. When she arrives at her flat, she sees Seema and her husband once again having sex on her bed, but her reaction remains the same. Without making any noise, she leaves her house and does not disturb them or reprimand Seema. On the third day, she catches them again, being intimate and still engaged in sex. But this time, instead of leaving her house, she hides herself near the main entrance of her house and begins to spy on them through a mirror. Instead of stopping them, she begins to feel uneasy and starts to pleasure herself while watching them, and before they finish, she quietly exits her house. This continues for many days. Every day, Ishita would leave her office at the exact same time to spy on her maid. Seema and her husband would get physical on Ishita's bed every day, and Ishita would secretly watch them and pleasure herself. All this continues for a long time for both of them. One day, like every other day, Ishita comes home from her office early to spy on them, but to her surprise, Seema isn't there. This is because Seema is still cleaning the house and is not in the bedroom with her husband. She had seen Ishita come in and became frightened because her husband was in Ishita's room. She thought she was about to get caught, but is surprised to see Ishita creeping and hiding herself to prevent making any sound or noise. She took a bucket and deliberately made a sound to see Ishita's reaction. Upon hearing the sound, Ishita hid herself, leaving Seema confused. Upon seeing this, Seema realizes that Ishita has been spying on them, and she is aware of the fact that Seema and her husband have sex in Ishita's bedroom. Seema then deliberately goes near her husband and gets physical with him to show Ishita, and Ishita also looks at her very carefully. Like every other day, this continues, only now, Seema knows that Ishita is looking at her, but she doesn't care about this, and Ishita also never disturbs her. Similarly, one day, Seema and her husband are having sex on Ishita's bed, and Ishita was watching them when suddenly, a lizard crawls near Ishita on the wall. Seeing the lizard, Ishita screams. Because of Thai, Seema and her husband comes out of the bedroom. All three of them are facing each other, and this situation is awkward for them. Ishita acts as if she has just discovered them and starts to shout at Seema, and curses at her for doing all of this in her house while she was not around. She starts to curse at her and badmouth her, and eventually, Ishita kicks her out and fires her. She screams at Seema and tells her that she will never let her work in this building ever again, adding that she would tell everyone of all the indecent actions Seema did on her bed. Hearing this, Seema shouts back at her and tells her that she'll expose Ishita in front of everyone and tell them that Ishita used to spy on them while having sex, and that she used to pleasure herself while watching them. Frustrated, Seema slams the door on her face. After Seema left, Ishita hired other maids, but none of them satisfied her. While she did not tell anyone about what Seema did, the same cannot be said for Seema. She spread the news throughout the building that Ishita used to masturbate while watching her and her husband. This eventually caused the people of the building to start making fun of Ishita. Even so, Ishita does not let this get to her head, remaining unbothered. Ishita also tries dating with various men, but not a single one of them is a good match. On the other hand, Seema tries looking for other jobs, but nothing works out. In a way, Ishita and Seema's life had become very boring without each other. One evening, Ishita is buying some vegetables from a street vendor when she bumps into Seema. Both of them try to make awkward small talk. Eventually, Seema breaks the silence and asks whether Ishita was able to find a new maid. Ishita admits she can't, and asks her whether she has been able to find any work, to which Seema also admits she can't. Ishita then says that she should have told Seema about everything earlier, when she saw them for the first time. Seema tells her that she knew Ishita was spying on them all along, but she decided to stay silent because she was enjoying it herself. Upon hearing this, Ishita becomes flustered and stays silent, while Seema asks her whether she can continue the work for her again starting tomorrow. After a moment of silence, Ishita smiles and hands over the keys to her apartment to Seema. The third story starts with a man whose name is Vijay. He was on his way to meet his girlfriend. Although Vijay was married, he did not have any feelings for his wife, which is why he frequently met with different girls. Suddenly, he gets a call from his boss, telling him that people from his company are trying to get him fired from his own company. He had worked a lot on his company, which is why he could not let this happen. He immediately calls his girlfriend to let her know that he will have to postpone their plans to meet up. Upon hearing this, the girl removes her top and hopes to make him change his mind. Due to this, Vijay's entire attention goes towards his phone, and in a desperate attempt to protect the car from an oncoming cyclist, he swerves right. But in doing so, he loses control and ends up hitting a tree on the side of the road. He tries to start the car but fails. Furthermore, his phone also loses coverage. Vijay asks the cyclist for help, and he agrees to help him. He asks Vijay to sit on the back of his cycle and takes him to a nearby village to find a mechanic. He eventually finds one and tries to use his phone, but the mechanic's phone does not work as well. He asks the mechanic to help fix his car, and the mechanic agrees to help him. Vijay, in the meantime, walks around the village. He discovers that the village is actually a very clean and beautiful place, and all the people are very respectful to each other. Vijay stops by a coffee shop, There is a community center near the coffee shop from where the sound of many people singing is coming from. Vijay goes inside the center. There, he sees that many people are dancing and singing together. He also sees a girl who is singing very beautifully. But when that girl turns around, Vijay gets very surprised to see her. Her name is Shanti. She is also a little uncomfortable when she sees Vijay there. Shanti was Vijay's wife 10 years ago. She had disappeared and Vijay had only received the news of Shanti's passing. Shanti hurriedly tries to leave. But to her surprise, Vijay follows her to her house. Vijay tries to talk to her, but she stops him. She repeatedly tells him that it is a bad idea and that he should not be there, because he doesn't belong there. A police officer passing by notices Vijay and Shanti talking and walks towards them. He asks Shanti whether Vijay was disturbing her, but she reassures the officer that she actually knows Vijay. The police officer then looks towards Vijay and tells him that it is in his best interest if he leaves there as soon as he can and that he does not belong there. After saying this, the police officer leaves. Shanti then brings Vijay inside her house. Vijay repeatedly asks her where she had disappeared 10 years ago and why she was staying there. Shanti does not answer and instead tells him that she is going to take a shower. While Shanti is showering, Vijay spies on her through the keyhole. After seeing her without any clothes on, Vijay's mind is overcome with lust and desire. The lust takes over his senses and all he wants is to be with Shanti once again. Once Shanti leaves the shower, he once again begins asking her questions, but she stops him. She says to Vijay that he does not belong there and that he should now return to his house, but Vijay refuses, insisting that she answer his questions first. Shanti confesses that she does not remember everything very clearly. She tells him that all she remembers is coming back from the nursery home when she was stopped by a random person who asked her about an address. The next thing she knew, she was here in this house. Vijay asks her why she didn't call him. According to her, she was scared that someone was going to unalive her. Vijay then asks Shanti why she went to the nursing home in the first place. Shanti says that she was pregnant, but Vijay never knew about Shanti's pregnancy. Shanti then assumes Vijay must have gotten married to another person, and Vijay confirms this. He tells her that he married Anita and that he also has 2 children. Vijay tells her that the company he works in belongs to Anita's father. Hearing that Vijay has settled down again, Shanti is happy for him. Vijay then tells Shanti that she needs to come back with him, and that Anita would be happy to see her too. Shanti refuses and tells Vijay that he still does not understand. She tells him the man who asked for the address was actually sent by Anita to eliminate her. She further explains that Anita has always loved him, and that she was jealous of her, which is why when she found out that she was pregnant she decided to her along with their unborn child. Vijay asks how Anita came to know that Shanti was pregnant. So Shanti reveals that the day she did the pregnancy test, there was a party at their home, and after the test, she had left the testing kit in the bathroom. After some time, when she returned, she found Anita exiting the bathroom. The testing kit she used was then placed upside down, whereas she had kept it straight before leaving. Suddenly, it all clicks in Vijay's mind, regarding why Anita never left him alone after Shanti's fake passing, even for a moment. Vijay doesn't know what to do next. Suddenly he grabs Shanti and tries to get physical with her. At first, she tries to stop him, but she eventually gives in. After they finish having sex, Shanti asks him what she would do if she becomes pregnant again. But Vijay assures her that nothing will happen. If in case she still feels scared, he tells her she can always use the specific pregnancy test kit again to be sure. After listening to Vijay, Shanti seems confused. She asks Vijay how he knew about the brand she used, since it was not available in India, and that it was actually brought by her friend from Canada. Furthermore, she never told anyone about the kits. Shanti suddenly understands that it wasn't Anita, but Vijay who sent the man, because he wanted to marry Anita for her wealth. But as Shanti is about to get up, Vijay puts a pillow over her face and tries to suffocate her. He presses the pillow tightly to make sure she cannot breathe. Shanti, who struggles desperately for a few moments, suddenly stops. As soon as Vijay gets up to leave, he sees the same police officer standing outside Shanti's house. Seeing the policeman, he tries to escape from the back of the house and starts to run towards his car. He goes to the place where his accident took place and sees people taking out someone's deceased body from his car. After some time, he realizes that it's in fact his own body. He suddenly realizes that he in fact passed away the moment his car crashed, and that all the people he has met and interacted with are also deceased, including Shanti. In the story, lust and greed was the reason for the demise of Vijay. The next story begins with a woman named Shanda. Shanda's husband's name is Suraj Singh. Suraj's ancestors were once kings and maharajas, so he had no shortage of property and money, but gradually that too was coming to an end. He was an idle and characterless man. A woman was just a toy and a plaything for him. Every single day he comes home drunk and physically and mentally tortures his wife. All of this had become second nature to him. Shanda tolerates all of his actions for her son, Yuvraj. Shanda was a prostitute in her youth and Suraj had developed a liking to her. This is why he married her, and now they even have a 16-year-old son, named Yuvraj. After marriage, Shanda was never happy, but she never left Suraj because of her son. She wanted to give a good life to Yuvraj. She had planted only one thing in Yuvraj's mind. He had to go to England after completing his education. Yuvraj also had to leave his father because of his actions. But Suraj never appreciated this. Instead, whenever Yuvraj brought up moving to England, his father got very angry. Although Shanda had left the brothel, she still used to call her brothel sometimes, to ask about the situation. The broker knew that Shanda only called when she was very sad. One morning, when Suraj Singh wakes up, he sees that a new maid has come to his mansion, whose name is Rika. Suraj looks at Rika with the same lustful eyes. After Rika's arrival, Suraj often tries to secretly look at her body when she is doing household chores. Suraj asks Shanda why she changed the maid, to which Shanda tells him that the previous maid ran away, and passes some sarcastic remarks at Suraj. The next day, Suraj calls Rika to massage his legs and tries to get intimate with her. But before he could do anything, their son walks in and Suraj angrily walks away. The same night, Suraj once again drinks a lot of alcohol and becomes drunk. On the other hand, Shanda hears someone go to Rika's room. She understands that it must be Suraja and smiles. Turns out this was all part of Shanda's plan. Rika was a girl who belonged to the brothel that Shanda belonged to. In the past, when she had called the lady in her brothel, she was told that there is a woman who has contracted an STD because of which she can no longer please take customers. Upon hearing this, Shanda asked the girl to come to her house and seduce Suraj so that when he has sex with her, he also gets the STD. This way she won't have to lift a finger, and Suraj would eventually perish due to the STD. But when Shanda is near Rika's room, she sees that Suraj is actually sleeping drunk on the floor. Outside of Rika's room, she becomes very nervous. Then she realizes that Rika is not with Suraj, but in fact she is having sex with her son Yuvraj. Turns out whatever plan she had made, a completely opposite outcome was produced. Sometimes lust catches everyone in its grip. This is where the last story ends.